Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Previously, we wrapped up the very first investigation phase in this game, and that involved speaking to Mr. Garada about the gas in the residence, and with Sosuke Natsume in prison, we pledged to defend him. And much to our delight and surprise, the victim, William Shamspeare, is alive. Somehow, I won't count my blessings, but I'm so glad that beautiful, beautiful man is here. And now we're in the trial section, so I can't wait to see who the jurors are, and the witnesses, and everything. Oh, it's gonna be so good. So, let's get going. I'm not expecting too much new from Van Zieks, because, well, this is taking place as a flashback before the fifth case, and it was only at the end of the fifth case that Van Zieks started letting Ryunosuke know a bit more about him. We know that Van Zieks suffered some betrayal from a Japanese person or people at some point, but I'm not sure what that entails yet, and I don't think we're going to learn that here. Anyway, the Old Bailey. This place always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine and break out in a nervous sweat all at the same time. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line! Good morning! Oh, good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, we somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this! Another morning, another murder, and here I am again in this hellhole! Can't keep coming to court! I'm beginning to think he's right. It really does seem as though he's cursed. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Yes, morning. So, here we are again. Yes, again. But the bad news? Judicial Assistant Miss Mikitoba Esquires, what's the bad news? Oh dear, you heard, did you? If you come in shouting at the top of your voice, people can't help hearing what you say! Oh, I am sorry. You've done nothing wrong, Miss Usato. Now, what is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Barrack von Zieks. Van Zieks? Gag! Oh no! Oh no! The so-called Reaper of the Bailey, the most legendary prosecutor in the land. In the trial 2 days ago, he pursued Sosuke-san and I relentlessly. Of course, by the skin of our teeth, we managed to pull through, but still. Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter after all. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The legend of the Reaper that says, nothing can save a person in the dock when Lord Van Zieks is the prosecutor. Oh no! That even if that person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end one way or another. And we've experienced it firsthand. Okay, so the game is bringing this up. Good. This is going to be relevant. A man we successfully defended met the most terrifying end after his acquittal, right here in the Old Bailey. Do I have to put up with those ice-cold eyes boring into my soul again? cursed by evil spirits and now by the Reaper. Pair of petrifying perils, potentially. Well, if it's potentially, at least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Yes? I'm innocent. You have to believe me. You, more than anyone now. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle, I promise. And this promises to be a hard battle, I fear. Well, the trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom. Let's go. Oh, yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean. That's probably for the best. Oh. If he were here, I might be tempted to rely on his help. And that could be seen as a weakness. If Lord Van Zieks were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. At least that's my gut feeling. Mr. Naruhodo. You're right. Yes, you're so right. Oh, well said, locum student Mr. Naruhodo, Esquire. Well said. I swear on this sword at my side, and on the spirit of Kazuma that it harbors. I'll show him what a Japanese lawyer can do. I'll set you free with honor. Oh, yes. Well, here we go. Wait. 9:40? Aren't these supposed to begin at 10 sharp? Huh. Oh, well... Oh. I think I spotted 5 familiar faces among the jury. Random my ass. Random my ass! Come on. Well, anyway, that's a little disappointing, but... I don't mind that much. I mean, honestly, they are fun characters anyway, so... In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. Man, when I was choosing this costume, I did not notice that little mouse dude at all. I think that's a mouse anyway. But otherwise, the costume looks sharp. And honestly, seeing Ryunosuke in a blue suit with a red tie. Oh yeah, that's pretty nostalgic. Readiness for the trial, my learned Nipponese friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just in my imagination. It's really there. Lord Van Zieks has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason. It was some time ago now that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailey, I believe. These past few years, he hasn't appeared in court at all. Yet now he's back in the courtroom, though for some reason, only when I'm defending. This Reaper, with his curious disdain for us Japanese, is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Sosuke-san's trial. Furthermore, I now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty? Absolutely. I had a feeling this larrikin wasn't innocent before. I must say that I feel especially ruthless on days when my hat refuses to sit right. Oh, well, I rather like how you're wearing your hat. I think the ruthless look is very fetching, actually. You're new. I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. I have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick. I couldn't agree more. I need to take home 5 bob tonight or the missus will go through the roof. Oh, may the Lord show us all the light here and lead his flock to a righteous verdict. The British jury system is so very different to our own, isn't it? It's quite extraordinary to think that the power of judgment is in the hands of 6 members of the public, and that the judge can only pass sentence when all jurors are in agreement about the defendant's guilt. 6 citizens of London, chosen at random, or at least that's the idea. The prosecution would draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today. Oh! Everything's solved. Everything's solved. Okay, wow! Oh, I'm sorry, Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. I doubted you. Oh, I'm not worthy. Okay. Wow. Well, don't look. I look like an ass. Very well then. Let us commence the trial. Lord Van Zeeks, your opening statement, please. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric Nipponese before has had dire consequences. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. What wrongdoing? He was acquitted. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate a most blood-curdling crime. Namely, that of the attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of the crime, the prosecution calls its first witnesses to the stand. Oh, the cape comes off right here. The detective responsible for investigating this scene and the accused himself. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. Sosuke Natsume from the Empire of Japan. My government ordered me to come here as a student to study your language and culture. Mr. Natsume? Yes, my lord, sir. I'm quite sure I'm not mistaken that you swore an oath never to set foot in my courtroom again. I remember it as if it were yesterday. It was yesterday. The day before, in fact, my lord, but close enough. It wasn't yesterday. Oh, believe me, this is the last place I want to be. Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case for the court. Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Garadev household where the defendant has lodgings. In the ground floor room of the victim, Mr. William Shamspeare. The defendant has already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shamspeare collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by strychnine. Strychnine. He was found the following morning when the landlord, suspecting something was wrong, broke down the door. This means, I presume, that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident. Correct, my lord. It was locked from the inside, making entry to or exit from the room impossible. Boy, these two great Ace Attorney games really love their locked room mysteries. That just has me wondering if the original Sherlock Holmes stories liked locked room mysteries. Although the victim, Mr. Shamspear, lives to tell the tale, he very nearly didn't. The man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. And I have a photographic print here that I took at the time to show how it looked. Well, everything's definitely in order. Except the other half of the... the soap. Okay, yeah, I'm noticing two weird things. For one thing, I want to say the soap on the table is facing the wrong way? Or... no, I think that's right. Well, anyway, the soap on the floor is not visible. And the second thing that I'm noticing here is that there's a weird puddle of some substance right on the floor beneath the red box. What is that? Yes, a chilling scene indeed. The man looks very much deceased. That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what he was. Very well, I shall accept this photographic print as evidence for the court. Neat. Now then, Mr. Natsume. Yes. As the defendant, do you have anything to say at this juncture? They're haunted by evil spirits. Good gracious, what's haunted? My lodgings! There's been a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings. The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances. A woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside. My neighbor was poisoned, and me, what about me? I've nearly been killed countless times. Killed, Mr. Natsume? How? Even on that fateful night it happened, when I returned from Mr. Shamspear's room. I lit my gas stove and climbed into bed, but before long, the stove went out and somebody tried to kill me. You must always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. But it's so cold! My runny nose would freeze. The point is, I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Thank you, witnesses. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of events. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? Go on. Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shamspear, has regained consciousness after his ordeal, and he has named the true culprit. The poison consumed by the victim was administered in the cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. Tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. The accused? Good grief! Ordar! Ordar! Yes, that's the crux of this whole case. If Sosuke-san is innocent, then why? Why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, what have you to say to this accusation? That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspear's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again, never. The public pump was frozen, you say? That's not information we've heard before. That will do, thank you. Now, according to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses at least once. Therefore, I call upon these witnesses now for a formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection.
None whatsoever, my lord.
Good. Then you will give your account of events on the night in question to the court now.
Yes, my lord.
The catastrophic night.
It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor, and I took some tea with me as a gift. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. Arg! My tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he?
Strychnine takes some time to have an effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands. Yes, I see. It all seems relatively straightforward.
Excuse me, but that testimony does raise one rather crucial point, I think. Mr. Natsume claims his tea to have been harmless. Presumably, though, the teacups have been examined for traces of the poison, haven't they?
Why didn't I think of that?
Well, as it happens, no. We haven't been able to.
Did I hear you correctly, Inspector? Scotland Yard has failed to examine the suspect's substance.
How could you have overlooked something so important? Isn't that the first thing you should have done?
My learned Nipponese friend is falsely incensed. The inspector said Scotland Yard was unable to examine the tea, not that it was overlooked.
Unable? Why? It's simple enough. There was none left. Not a drop. Someone must have been very thirsty indeed.
With current scientific techniques, it's not possible to test for poison under such circumstances.
We only need a drop, but that one drop does actually have to exist, funnily enough.
The lack of examination notwithstanding, it appears nothing other than the tea passed the victim's lips on the night in question. I see. Thank you. The matter is clear. Cast your eyes over the jury, my learned friend.
What?
You can see it in their faces, I'm sure. The recognition of the accused's guilt. Your client's fate is all but sealed. In mere moments from now, you will lose and your compatriot will be damned for all eternity. He's right. I can feel all 6 of the jurors looking daggers at me. But I can't let them beat me down. I won't. Counsel for the defense, proceed with your cross-examination.
Yes, my lord.
With pleasure.
It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor, and I took some tea with me as a gift.
Hold it!
Were you and your neighbor good friends then?
No, we weren't friends. Not at all, not at all. Never, ever.
A simple no would have sufficed. Then, why did you decide to pay him a visit?
Mr. Shemspeare fancies himself as having great literary knowledge. As a fellow scholar of English literature, we find much to talk about together.
Come now, no Nipponese could understand the finer points of English literature. Wow. And on the night in question, that was the topic of conversation as well, I presume.
It was the day of my last trial when I was acquitted. I just arrived back at my lodgings when I ran into Mr. Shamspeare outside on the street. That was at around 6 o'clock. We exchanged one or two pleasantries, but it soon turned into a heated discussion. He was on his way out at the time, though, so I promised to visit his room that evening at 9 to continue our debate. But did I have ill intentions? No, not one, not two, not any, not at all. Never, ever. A simple no would have sufficed, I feel.
Then tell the court what did happen when you visited the victim's room.
We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11.
Hold it!
A literary debate? About Shakespeare's works, I think you said, didn't you? Shakespeare? A very worthy topic of conversation, I must say.
Oh yes, my lord. Romeo and Juliet, who was stronger? It was a profoundly pleasurable parley.
This is how anime power scalers sound to me. Like, I frequent discussion forums for One Piece, and I feel like any conversation about power scaling in that series is just worthless from the start. One of the power systems in One Piece is literal willpower made manifest. If your willpower is stronger than someone else, you can just knock them out with your mind. Come on. You can't put a number on your willpower. Honestly, the only thing worth considering for anime fights is, okay, how cool could this fight be? That's all. Romeo and Juliet.
Who was stronger? I know I'm going to regret asking this, but how did the debate go? Well, we both agreed that we would reach a conclusion more quickly with a reenactment. So we battled it out, in a Greco-Roman style, naturally. What? Mr. Shamspeare had all sorts of costumes in his room for just such a contest.
So when you say a reenactment, you mean you were actually in costume?
He as Romeo, I as Juliet, and after a vigorous wild tussle, I as Juliet came out on top. A victory I'll cherish forever.
Well, that's intense. I dare not imagine the terrible scene of carnage. The fact remains that it was you who prepared the tea and took it to the victim, correct?
I boiled the water in my room and made a pot to take with me.
Good, boiling water's important in this era.
I'd heard that he was too poor to have tea himself, you see.
It's true, there was no sign of any tea leaves in the man's room.
I wanted to do something nice, to be friendly. So why is everyone looking at me with such suspicion? My tea was harmless, of course it was.
And do you have any basis for that statement, witness?
My tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he?
Hold it!
Yes, there was not a drop of tea left in the victim's room anywhere, was there?
That's correct. Anyone would think the fellow had never had a pot of tea before. He must have licked it dry. Which is a pity, because one drop is all we would have needed to analyze it for poison.
And you say that you returned home to your room at 11 o'clock, Mr. Natsume?
Yes, definitely. By heaven and earth, I swear it. The landlord was able to verify that, as it happens. He confirmed that the defendant went back to his room at 11 that night.
And how is the landlord able to attest to this?
He, said it was the lamps, I believe.
The lamps, Inspector? When tenants return to their rooms and start using gas, the lamps in other parts of the house flicker. So, there should have been a flickering when the water was being boiled, right?
Yes, Mr. Gerdeb seems to pay a lot of attention to the comings and goings of his tenants. There's only one key to Mr. Shamspear's room. I know that for certain. So he must have locked the door himself from inside his room.
The victim has confirmed that to be the case, yes.
So I'm right. My tea was harmless, completely harmless. If you take poison, you die. Everyone knows that.
It's not that simple, I'm afraid.
What do you mean?
Strychnine takes some time to have an effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it.
Hold it!
How long does it take for symptoms to appear then? According to the coroner I was speaking to at the yard, about 30 minutes after the poison's consumed. Then the victim suffers violent convulsions, cramping, and stiffness, and eventually dies from asphyxiation. So there's a 30-minute interval between when the poison is ingested and the onset of symptoms. There seems to be a lot of different types of poison in the world, that's for sure.
Oh dear, death by poisoning again. It's always so awful.
30 minutes is a long time. Certainly long enough for the victim to have locked the door behind the accused after he left. Can't deny that. And it further degrades Sosuke-san's alibi.
I have the medical report from the doctor who examined the victim here, my lord. It spells it out, really. The accused is the only person who could have done it.
Very well. The court will add this report to the court record as evidence.
Oh yes, I see it here. Delayed onset of symptoms.
Great. Hold on, I want to read this. Cause of coma. Ingestion of a small quantity of strychnine. Toxic effects present 30 minutes after ingestion. High likelihood of the substance having been mixed with the tea the victim was drinking. No sample could be obtained for testing. The poisoning incident occurred at around 1:30 a.m. Assessed from the victim's pocket watch, it appears to have broken when the man collapsed after the delayed onset of symptoms. Oh. That's way later than 30 minutes after Sosuke left. And no container for the poison was found at the scene. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands.
Hold it!
The argument still stands, you say? This is what Mr. Natsume has been saying, isn't it? The pair of them drank tea together that night, so if there was poison in it, the victim wouldn't have been able to lock the door after the accused left later on.
Exactly! Me and my tea are innocent. Sweet and innocent, I tell you.
I'm afraid, sir, that doesn't follow. You see, strychnine is a slow-acting poison. In other words, it takes time for symptoms to appear. So you could have left the room up to 30 minutes after the victim drank the tea. And as long as you did that, Mr. Shamspear could have locked the door after you'd gone.
But no! We drank the tea straight away. The battle over whether Romeo or Juliet was stronger. That came after the tea.
Do you have any evidence to support that statement?
In my great homeland, the Empire of Japan, we have a saying. Drink tea while it's hot.
Sure, a proverb will satisfy the prosecution. I'm afraid there is no conclusive proof to support the defendant's assertion. On the contrary, there are sufficient grounds to infer his guilt in this matter.
No.
That's the extent of their testimony, is it?
If I could voice a personal opinion, Mr. Naruhodo.
Of course, go ahead.
Mr. Natsume is arguing for his innocence so adamantly and so persistently, yet Inspector Gregson just brushes what he says aside. It's really quite infuriating.
I agree. So we need to find an inconsistency in what the inspector is saying, I think.
I'm afraid so. As things stand, the jurors are sure to find Mr. Natsume guilty.
As I see it, what we need to focus on is the poison in the tea. Let's listen carefully to this testimony again.
Yes.
Well, there you go, right there. 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor and I took some tea with me as a gift. That doesn't track with the date of the poisoning, though. Whoops. That would mean they'd have to drink the tea at 1, which is 4 hours later? Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Objection!
Oh, come on. My lord, there are clearly grounds for being suspicious of that last statement. I'm sorry, counsel, but I fail to see why. Wrong voice. Well, you know, I was just playing devil's advocate. Yes, you do appear to have something of the devil in you, Mr. Naruhodo. Says the man merrily dishing out penalties. Oh, this works. You went back to your room at around 11, and you drank. You drank and then went home at 11.
Objection!
Okay. Mr. Natsume, you say it was 11 p.m. when you left to return to your room, correct?
Yes.
And Inspector Gregson, can we rely on the information in the medical report unconditionally?
Of course we can. There's no problem with that report, Sunshine.
Actually, I think there's a very big problem. Because there's a chronological inconsistency between it and the defendant's testimony.
A chrono what? What are you on about?
According to this report, the victim must have consumed the poison at around 1:30 in the morning. And yet, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, left the victim's room at 11.
Ah.
Yes, that's right. There's more than 2 hours of missing time there. In other words, if there was poison in the tea that Mr. Natsume brought to the victim's room, how could the victim have fallen ill to it 2.5 full hours after the defendant left?
Wag!
Wow, that's the same animation. Interesting. The defense's argument is entirely reasonable. How do you respond, Lord Van Zieks? Pray forgive the discourtesy if my mind was wandered. I was considering what cuisine would best complement the contents of my hallowed chalice this luncheon. How could it have happened, you ask? I do hate to shatter illusions, but my Nipponese friend appears to be chasing a phantom idea.
A phantom?
Is it so hard to imagine that the victim drank his tea after the accused had left? For example, at the time stated in the medical report. Yes, at around 1:30.
Objection!
Mr. Natsume brought the tea with him to drink together with his neighbor. And in Japan, there is a well-known saying, drink a tea while it's hot.
Objection!
And in my country, there is an even more apt saying. There is nothing more refreshing than cold tea. The point is, if there was such a long gap, there may be other ways to explain how the victim came to be poisoned, other possibilities.
What sort of possibilities, Counsel?
Well, for example, the man could have had another visitor. Another visitor. That's a very bold assertion, my learned friend, from someone who has nothing to substantiate it. Or the victim could have taken the poison of his own volition.
You suggest this may have been a suicide, Counsel?
Objection!
Mr. Shamspeare has categorically denied suicide. The idea can and must be discounted.
Objection!
But he could be lying.
Is something wrong, Lord Van Zeeks?
I was listening to the sound of the carriage pulling up outside the courtroom. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Carriage? What carriage? It would seem that the key player in this case has just arrived. Hooray! Out! Out, brief candle! Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing.
Who, sir, are you?
William Shamspeare, my lord. Alas, 'twas I, undone by these bitter events. I am the victim. What? What's he doing here? The prosecution seeks to call this gentleman to the stand. With his testimony, my learned friend's futile resistance will be utterly crushed. You're calling him as a witness?
Very well, Counsel. I grant your request with interest. I'm curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself.
Happy am I, Shamspeare, to regale thee with my tale of woe, my lord. But I still have my own tale to tell, my own tale of worse woe. I can regale the court with a tale of my perfect innocence in perfect English.
That will do, Mr. Natsume. Let the court now hear from the victim.
Oh, when the hell did you show up? Alright, so that's Mr. Shamspeare. But who's that other man beside him? Yes, I feel sure that we've caught a glimpse of that man before. State your names and occupations for the court, please, witnesses. A writer of words so sweet they do scent the breeze, an inventor of ideas so profound they compose the earth. The unrivaled poet, the unmatched scribe, William Shakespeare. Were the great bard to be recalled to life anew, lo, what a magnificent man. Good fellows, I am he who ponders such a miracle, William Shamspeare.
Oh, name's Meterman. Adrian B. Meterman.
Meter man. Did parking meters even exist in this era? So Adrian B. Adrian B? Atrophy? Atrophy meter man? Like, atrophy as in the heat death of the universe, time's ticking until the heat death, and atrophy is ticking down the time for the meter? Okay, no, what the hell's your name supposed to be? Also, just me, or does he have like some sort of homemade patch on his jacket? I work for the Altamont Gas Company. Oh, the gas meter! Oh, I'm such a dumbass! Okay. The gas man. Huh. I work for the Altamont Gas Company, East End branch office.
Oh, I remember now. It was yesterday on Briar Road.
Oh, yes, she's right, it's him. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? He looks like he's trying to see into Sosuke-san's lodgings.
Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo?
Excuse me, could we have a word?
Ah.
Yes, we spotted him outside Mr. Gerdeb's house that morning. And he's a gas company employee. What does he have to do with this case? So, Mr. William Shamspeare, you are the victim in this miserable affair, correct?
Oh, heaven, oh, hell, do you command me to remember? That sweet poison that didst cross me and cross mine innocent lips.
I subpoenaed him for the trial, with his doctor's permission, naturally. Hearing the testimony of the aggrieved will remove any room for doubt from the jurors' minds, I'm sure.
Behold, you have only to rearrange the letters of my name to see that me's a seraph, an angel indeed.
But what about... Okay.
Thus be I noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily honest of heart, as all heavenly angels be.
Because there isn't a less contrived meaning in your name. No, not at all.
The jurors seem to be very moved by this man, I'm afraid.
They're actually taking this Seraph and anagram idea seriously? Thank you, witnesses, for your illuminating introductions. But, my lord, what's the man next to Mr. Shamspeare doing here? The gas man, I mean. What? Me? Well now. Allow me to enlighten my learned friend. You recall, I presume, your earlier impertinence. When you suggested that the victim had another visitor to his room on the night in question. And, moreover, that the victim is a compulsive liar.
What? No, I didn't quite say that.
This young chin-stroker is here to controvert your wild claims conclusively. Is that not so, Mr. Meterman?
Hang on, no, I'm just here...
I hereby call for your formal testimonies. You will tell the court as lucidly as possible what happened on the night in question.
One may smile and be a villain. Yes, it doth pain me, but let the truth be spoken, the truth of that wintry night of my discontent.
Oh, brother, here we go.
The snow lay about. My neighbor did cometh in the evening, bearing a gift of tea. But merry, bitter was his drink, and when he left, I did fall prostrate on my table. 'Twas the tea alone did pass my lips that late hour, naught else.
I was outside this bloke's window in the freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on his room. No one else visited his room but that short little round-backed eastern fella.
Why would you do that? Wait, what did you say? You were keeping an eye on Mr. Shamspeare's room all night?
That's right. Of course, the bloke's window is all but blocked up, isn't it? But there's a little gap in the bricks where you can see into the room. So I spent the night trying to keep my teeth from chattering as I peered in through that.
The question is, sir, why?
Oh, well now, that's because he's on my list.
What a piece of work is a man! Wherefore wouldst thou not stare in wonderment?
I love this dude.
What are you talking about? This buzzing busybody hath not part in this play. I pray thee pay him no heed, make no more ado about his tedious words.
What did you say about me?
Calm yourself. This court is concerned with what happened on the night in question. Nothing more.
Indeed, that is so.
And as the testimony we have just heard clearly reveals, there was no one other than the accused present at the time who could have carried out this crime.
Well, I believe this may be the final testimony of the trial. Haha, no way. Now, counsel, the defense may proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord.
Let's end things here.
Well, I'm pleased to say that Shamspeare here is everything I ever could have dreamed and hoped for, and more. You know, I do, like... Last time I was talking about inspiration, the Capcom carrying forward inspiration from the Layton crossover game. The way this guy's adorned with surely fake gold and jewels reminds me so much of the best character from that game, who I forget the name of. It was Guy something, some guy. Boy, I can picture him in my mind's eye, but boy, I forget him. Either way. Oh, I love this man. Yeah, I'm still kind of thinking that it's drugs. There was someone handing over drugs through that soap through the window. That's so weird. And what's more, by all means, his Meter Man's claim that he was watching through the window is patently absurd. The window should have been bricked over completely and utterly at the time of what was going on in that room. It should have been completely impossible for him to ever see Natsume. So I think we can definitely use that next time, but of course I will press everything, if only to spend as much time possible with this beautiful example of a foppish dandy. I love him. Have I said that yet? I love this man. Like, even if he ends up being like a completely evil bastard man who does bad things, like give drugs to people, I'm still gonna love him. Yeah.
He has a high charisma attribute, alright? I'm won over. God, I'm still... a few weeks ago, on my channel, I featured a few videos of Baldur's Gate 3. I'm still coming off the high of my playthrough of that game. I only did 4 videos of it, but I did do the full playthrough in my own time. My lovely bard, dressed in purple, dyed purple clothes. Fond memories. Ah, fond memories. You know, speaking of Baldur's Gate, I was thinking, if there's ever, like, some sort of, like, Solarian Studios, with their previous games, they did, like, enhanced editions. They would come back to their older games and do, like, enhanced editions, which add way more bells and whistles and more content and refinement. And I'm thinking, if there ever was one of those for Baldur's Gate 3, I wouldn't be opposed to doing a Let's Play of it for my second playthrough. Like, take all the other choices, all the evil choices, and just real play around with it. Like a whole new class, something I never did before. Like, I have been thinking of trying out Storm Cleric. Seems nice. But boy, that is beside the point. My point is, a very awful flub aside, with my penalty taken, no, I think we're smooth sailing for now. We're still early in this game. The kid gloves are absolutely on. The fallacies and testimonies are very clear and obvious to see so far. Like, very, very clear. And eventually that nicety is going to run out, maybe by the 3rd, maybe 4th case, but no, we're just here in the nice, tranquil 2nd case, so... Oh, man. I gotta savor this while it lasts. I'm Zephyr the Jester. This has been more of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Thank you for watching. Hopefully, I'll catch you next time. So until then, please take care.